The autumn sun dipped low on the horizon as Lily Harper's heart pounded in her chest, the stagecoach wheels rumbling beneath her like distant thunder across the Nebraska plains. After 3 weeks of grueling travel from Boston, she was mere minutes away from meeting the man who would become her husband, a stranger whose handwritten letters were tucked carefully in her valise, their edges worn from countless readings. "Last stop before Cottonwood Creek, miss," the driver called down. "You sure someone's waiting for you at that old Jameson place? Ain't seen smoke from that chimney in months." Lily smoothed her travel-worn skirt, fighting the flutter of anxiety in her stomach. "Yes, Mr. Fletcher Jameson assured me he would be there." Her voice sounded more confident than she felt. 23 years old and traveling across the country to marry a man she'd never met. Her friends back in Boston thought her mad. Perhaps they were right. The year was 1876, and opportunities for women of her station were few. After her father's passing left her with mounting debts and no prospects, the advertisement in the newspaper had seemed like providence. "Established rancher seeks educated bride of good character. Passage paid." Fletcher's letters had been kind, thoughtful, speaking of a modest but growing cattle operation and a home waiting for a woman's touch. The stagecoach crested a final hill, and Lily's breath caught. Below stretched a valley painted in fading light, a small cluster of buildings marking Cottonwood Creek. Beyond the tiny settlement, she could just make out a distant structure, what must be Fletcher's ranch. "That'll be your place, miss," the driver pointed. "About 2 miles past town." "Want me to take you all the way?" Lily nodded gratefully. "Please." The coach rattled through the main street of Cottonwood Creek, drawing curious glances from the few townspeople still out as dusk approached. Lily felt their stares but kept her eyes forward, clutching her small handbag. Everything she owned was either on her person or in the trunk, strapped to the back of the coach, her entire life condensed into so little. As they left the town behind, the landscape opened up further. The road narrowed to little more than a rutted trail, winding through tall grass that swayed in the evening breeze. In the distance, Lily could see the silhouette of what must be the ranch house, dark against the deepening blue sky. "Mighty quiet out here," the driver commented, squinting ahead. "Don't see no welcoming party." Lily swallowed hard. "Perhaps he's inside preparing." She refused to voice the worry creeping up her spine. What if he'd changed his mind? What if the letters had stopped because he no longer wanted a bride? The coach finally pulled up to a modest ranch house with a covered porch. A barn stood nearby, along with several smaller outbuildings. The property was well built but showed signs of neglect, peeling paint on the fence posts, overgrown grass near the house. Most concerning was the stillness. No horses in the corral, no cattle visible in the nearby pasture, no smoke from the chimney. "Don't look like anybody's home, miss," the driver said gently, jumping down to help her. Lily stepped down, her legs stiff from the journey. "Perhaps there's been a delay." "I'm certain Mr. Jameson will return shortly." Her voice trembled slightly as she surveyed what was supposed to be her new home. The driver unloaded her trunk, setting it on the ground beside her. "Town's not far if you need to head back. Stage comes through again in 3 days." "Thank you, but I'll wait. Mr. Jameson is expecting me." The driver hesitated, clearly reluctant to leave a young woman alone as darkness approached. "You sure, miss? Don't feel right leaving you here with night coming on." "I'll be fine," Lily insisted, though her confidence was waning. "The house is right here. I'm certain there's an explanation." With clear reluctance, the driver tipped his hat. "If you're set on staying, good luck to you, miss." He climbed back onto the coach, gave her one last doubtful look, then snapped the reins. The stagecoach pulled away, leaving Lily standing alone in the gathering dusk, the silence of the prairie pressing in around her. Lily approached the house, her footsteps sounding impossibly loud. The porch steps creaked beneath her weight. She knocked on the door, waited, then knocked again more forcefully. No response came from within. She tried the handle, surprised to find it unlocked. The door swung open with a protesting groan, revealing darkness beyond. "Hello," Lily called, her voice small against the emptiness. "Mr. Jameson, Fletcher." Only silence answered her. Fighting her rising panic, Lily stepped inside, fumbling in her bag for the matches she carried. Striking one, she held it aloft, the small flame illuminating what appeared to be a tidy but sparse main room. A table, some chairs, a small sofa all covered in a thin layer of dust. The match burned down to her fingers, and she dropped it with a startled cry, plunging the room back into darkness. Lily struck another match and spotted an oil lamp on a nearby table. She lit it quickly, adjusting the wick to cast a steady glow throughout the room. The house was neat but felt unlived in. No fire in the hearth, no food on the table, no personal touches visible. Lily's heart sank. Had she made a terrible mistake? Had Fletcher Jameson abandoned this place, or worse, never existed at all? A sound from outside made her freeze, the distinctive clip-clop of hooves approaching. Lily hurried to the window, peering out into the near darkness. A lone rider was approaching, silhouetted against the darkening sky. She smoothed her hair and straightened her dress, uncertain whether to feel relief or fear. The rider drew closer, dismounting with a fluid grace that spoke of years in the saddle. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his face shadowed beneath his wide-brimmed hat. Lily hesitated by the door, lamp in hand, as boot steps crossed the porch. Then a knock, firm but not threatening. "Hello, is someone there?" A deep voice, tinged with surprise, gathering her courage. Lily opened the door. The man on the porch took a step back, clearly startled by her presence. In the lamplight, she could see him clearly now, perhaps 30 years old, with weathered features that spoke of a life spent outdoors, dark hair, and eyes that regarded her with astonishment. "I'm sorry, madam, but who are you?" he asked, removing his hat. "And what are you doing in Fletcher Jameson's house?" Lily's confusion deepened. "I'm Lily Harper. I've come to marry Fletcher Jameson. Are you not him?" The man's expression shifted to one of profound shock, then something like sorrow. "Miss Harper, I'm Franklin Jameson." "Fletcher was my brother." Lily felt the blood drain from her face. "Was?" Franklin Jameson looked down at his hat, turning it in his hands. "I'm afraid there's been a terrible misunderstanding. My brother died 3 months ago. Fever took him fast." He looked up, meeting her eyes. "I had no idea he'd sent for a bride." The lamp trembled in Lily's hand. "I don't understand. I received a letter just before departing Boston confirming my arrival date." "When was it sent?" "Nearly 4 weeks ago." Franklin shook his head. "That would have been after he passed." "I've been managing his affairs, going through his correspondence when I can, but I've been occupied with my own ranch 10 miles north." He paused, studying her with genuine concern. "Miss Harper, I'm truly sorry. It appears you've traveled all this way for nothing." Lily felt as though the floor had disappeared beneath her feet. "I see." Her voice sounded distant to her own ears. All her plans, her future, vanished in an instant. Franklin stepped forward, then seemed to think better of it, maintaining a respectful distance. "Please, come sit down. You must be exhausted from your journey." He gestured toward the interior of the house. Lily moved numbly back into the main room, setting the lamp on the table. She sank into a chair, her mind racing. What would she do now? She had no home to return to, very little money, and no prospects. Franklin remained standing, clearly uncomfortable. "I've been checking on the place weekly, making sure it's secure. The cattle have been moved to my property until I decide what to do with the ranch." He hesitated. "Did you have any family or friends who might take you in?" "I could arrange passage back east." "No," Lily said softly. "There's nothing for me in Boston. My parents are gone, and I sold everything to pay debts before coming west." The silence between them stretched, heavy with the weight of her predicament. "You must be hungry," Franklin finally said. "I brought some supplies." He gestured to his saddlebags. "It's not much, but I could make us something to eat while we figure this out." Lily nodded, grateful for his kindness despite the shock. As Franklin moved about the kitchen, lighting the stove and unpacking bread, cheese, and dried meat, Lily tried to gather her thoughts. The reality of her situation was beginning to sink in, stranded in the middle of nowhere, all her plans destroyed. "I'm sorry the place is in such a state," Franklin said as he worked. "Fletcher was always meticulous about his home. He would have been horrified to welcome his bride to a dusty house." He paused, a flash of pain crossing his features. "He was a good man, my brother, would have made a fine husband." "He seemed so in his letters," Lily said quietly. "Kind and thoughtful." Franklin nodded. "That he was." He set a plate before her. "It's simple fare, I'm afraid." "Thank you." Lily took a small bite, though her appetite had fled. "What will happen to the ranch?" Franklin sighed, sitting across from her with his own plate. I've been trying to decide. I could sell it, but land prices aren't what they were, or I might combine it with my operation, though managing both properties would be challenging. He looked around the room. Fletcher put everything he had into this place, built most of it himself. They ate in silence for a few minutes, the gravity of their respective losses hanging between them. "Miss Harper," Franklin finally said, "I know this isn't what you expected, and I'm sorry for that. But you're welcome to stay the night here. The bedroom is clean." Fletcher was particular about that. "Tomorrow I can take you into town, help you figure out your next steps." Lily nodded gratefully. "Thank you, Mr. Jameson. Franklin, please." He stood, collecting their plates. "I'll get a fire going. Nights get cold out here." As Franklin built a fire in the hearth, Lily watched him, noting the careful, efficient way he worked. He was different from what she had imagined Fletcher to be, more reserved, with a quiet strength about him. When the flames caught, bathing the room in a warm glow, he straightened. "I should go," he said, reaching for his hat. "It's not proper for me to stay, and my own place needs tending." "Of course," Lily said, suddenly afraid at the thought of being left alone. Will you return in the morning?" Franklin nodded. "First light, I'll bring more supplies." He hesitated by the door. "Lock this behind me. You'll be safe here, not much trouble in these parts, but it's best to be cautious." After Franklin left, Lily secured the door and leaned against it, finally allowing the tears she'd been holding back to fall. Everything she had hoped for, planned for, had crumbled in an instant. She was alone in a strange land with no home, no husband-to-be, and no clear path forward. Eventually, exhaustion overtook her. Lily found the bedroom Franklin had mentioned, a simple space with a neatly made bed. Too tired to fully undress, she removed only her shoes and outer garments before lying down. Despite her turmoil, sleep claimed her quickly, the fatigue of her long journey finally catching up with her. She woke to sunlight streaming through the window and the aroma of coffee. For a moment disoriented, Lily thought she was back in Boston. Then the events of the previous evening rushed back, and she sat up with a start. Hastily dressing, Lily made her way to the main room to find Franklin at the stove, his back to her as he tended to a cast-iron skillet. "Good morning," she said softly. Franklin turned, offering a tentative smile. "Miss Harper, I hope you slept well. I've brought eggs and some fresh bread from my place." "That's very kind, thank you." Lily moved to the table, noticing it had been cleared of dust. In fact, the entire room looked cleaner, as though Franklin had arrived early to tidy up. "I thought we might discuss your options after breakfast," he said, placing a plate of eggs and bread before her. "The stagecoach won't come through again until tomorrow, but there's a decent boarding house in town if you'd prefer to wait there." Lily nodded, though the thought of a boarding house filled her with dread. What would she do after that? Her funds were limited, enough for perhaps a week's lodging, no more. "Mr. Jameson, Franklin," she began hesitantly, "I wonder if you know of any positions available in the area." "I'm educated, I can keep accounts, and I'm willing to work hard." Franklin considered this as he sat across from her. "Cottonwood Creek is small but growing. The general store might need help, or perhaps the school if you have teaching experience." "I tutored children in Boston," Lily offered, "though I don't have formal qualifications." "It's worth inquiring," Franklin said. "People here are practical. Capability matters more than papers." They finished breakfast, and Franklin helped Lily load her trunk into his wagon. As they prepared to leave, Lily took a last look at what was to have been her home. Despite the brevity of her stay, she felt a strange connection to the place, perhaps because it had been the focus of her dreams for so many months. The ride to town was mostly silent, with Lily lost in thought about her uncertain future and Franklin respectfully giving her space. Cottonwood Creek looked different in daylight, a single main street with various businesses, a church at one end, and scattered houses extending outward. Franklin pulled the wagon up in front of a two-story building with a sign reading Porterhouse Lodging. "Mrs. Porter runs a respectable establishment," he explained. "She's a widow, came west with her husband years ago. She'll treat you fairly." Inside, they found Mrs. Porter, a stout woman with graying hair and sharp eyes that took in Lily's predicament at a glance after Franklin's brief explanation. "Of course the poor girl can stay," she declared. "I've got a nice room at the back, quiet and clean." She named a price that made Lily wince inwardly. At that rate, her savings wouldn't last long. "Thank you," Lily said, calculating rapidly how to stretch her funds. After securing the room and bringing in her trunk, Franklin accompanied Lily to the general store, where the proprietor, Mr. Davis, regretfully informed them he had no positions available. The schoolhouse was closed for harvest season, and the small hotel was fully staffed. With each rejection, Lily's spirits fell further. By midday, they had exhausted the obvious possibilities in the small town. Standing outside the general store, Lily tried to hide her growing desperation. "Perhaps I should consider moving on to a larger settlement," she suggested. Though the thought of traveling further into unknown territory terrified her, Franklin frowned. "The next sizable town is 40 miles west. It would mean another stage journey, more expense." He hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. "Miss Harper, I have a proposition for you. It's not ideal, but it might help us both." Lily looked at him questioningly. "As I mentioned, I'm trying to manage 2 properties now. My own ranch keeps me busy enough, and Fletcher's place is suffering from neglect. I need someone to help keep the books for both operations and to oversee Fletcher's house until I decide what to do with it." He met her eyes directly. "The position would include room and board at Fletcher's ranch, plus a small wage. It would be temporary, perhaps through winter, but it would give you time to make more permanent arrangements." Lily blinked in surprise. "You would trust a stranger with such responsibility?" "You came here prepared to run a household," Franklin pointed out, "and Fletcher clearly thought highly of you based on his decision to make you his wife." A slight flush colored his cheeks at these words. "Besides, I'm not far away if problems arise." Lily considered the offer. It wasn't what she had come for, but it would provide shelter and time to plan her next move. The alternative was spending her meager savings on lodging while frantically searching for work. "There would need to be clear boundaries," she said carefully, "for propriety's sake." "Absolutely," Franklin agreed quickly. "I would only visit during daylight hours for business matters. Your reputation would be protected." Lily drew a deep breath. "Then I accept your offer, Mr. Jameson. Thank you." Relief crossed Franklin's features. "Good, that's good." He glanced at the sun's position. "We should head back soon if you're agreeable. There's much to be done at the ranch before dark." They collected Lily's belongings from Mrs. Porter's, explaining the arrangement. The older woman looked skeptical but didn't voice objections. As they drove back toward the ranch, Lily felt a mixture of anxiety and cautious hope. This wasn't the future she had envisioned, but it was a respite, a chance to gather herself. "I should explain more about the operation," Franklin said as they traveled. "Fletcher ran about 60 head of cattle. I've temporarily moved them to my property, but the plan would be to bring them back. The ranch has good water access and decent grazing land, and my duties would include," Lily prompted, "keeping the accounts for both properties, corresponding with cattle buyers, maintaining the house." He glanced at her. "I can show you the books Fletcher kept. He was organized but not especially detailed. I suspect someone with your education could improve the system." Lily nodded, already thinking of how she might approach the task. In Boston, she had helped her father with his business correspondence for years before his death. When they arrived back at the ranch, the place looked different to Lily in daylight. She could see now that it was well designed, with sturdy buildings and good fencing, though clearly in need of maintenance. The house itself was larger than she had initially realized, with a spacious main room, a kitchen, 2 bedrooms, and even a small study where Fletcher had kept his records. Franklin showed her around thoroughly, explaining the property's layout and history. Fletcher started with nothing 5 years ago, built most of this himself with some help from neighbors. He was determined to create something lasting. Pride and sorrow mingled in his voice. In the study, Franklin pulled out ledgers and correspondence files. "These will give you an idea of the operation. Take your time reviewing them. I'll need to return to my place soon, but I'll come back tomorrow to answer any questions." As evening approached, Franklin brought in firewood and made sure Lily had everything she needed for the night. "There's a rifle in that cabinet," he said, pointing. "Do you know how to use one?" "My father taught me," Lily replied, "though it's been some time." Franklin nodded approvingly. "Good. Like I said, there's little trouble around here, but it's best to be prepared." He hesitated by the door. "If you need anything urgently, my place is northwest. Follow the creek upstream about 10 miles. After Franklin left, Lily explored the house more thoroughly. It was plain but well built, with surprising touches that spoke of care, hand-carved moldings around the doors, a rocking chair with intricate designs on the armrests, bookshelves filled with an eclectic collection of volumes. She ran her fingers along the spines, finding works of history, practical manuals on ranching, and even a few novels. In the main bedroom, Fletcher's room, she realized Lily discovered a small desk with a drawer containing personal correspondence. She started to close it, feeling like an intruder, but a packet of letters caught her eye. With a start, she recognized her own handwriting. Fletcher had kept every letter she had sent, neatly bundled with string. Beside them lay a half-finished response, dated just days before his death according to Franklin's account. The words blurred as tears filled her eyes. "My dear Miss Harper, I find myself counting the days until your arrival. The house stands ready for your presence, though I fear it is humble compared to what you may be accustomed to in Boston. Still, there is good land here, and opportunity for us to build something meaningful together." Lily set the letter down, overwhelmed by grief for a man she had never met, but had come to know through months of correspondence. He had seemed so full of life and plans for the future in his letters. To think of him falling ill, perhaps writing this final letter during his sickness, was almost unbearable. That night, Lily slept in the smaller bedroom, unwilling to claim Fletcher's space. Despite her exhaustion, sleep came fitfully, her dreams filled with stage coaches that never reached their destinations and letters that turned to dust in her hands. The next morning, Lily rose early and set to work. If she was to earn her keep, she would start immediately. She began by thoroughly cleaning the main room and kitchen, then moved on to examining Fletcher's ledgers. The system he had used was functional but basic. Lily could see several ways to improve it, to track expenses and income more efficiently. Franklin arrived mid-morning, bringing more supplies and looking surprised at the transformation already evident in the house. "You've been busy," he commented, setting down a crate of provisions. "I thought I should earn my wages from the start," Lily replied. "I've been looking at the accounts as well. Mr. Jameson Fletcher was diligent, but I believe I can implement a more comprehensive system." Franklin smiled slightly. "I'm sure you can. Fletcher was many things, but a bookkeeper wasn't one of them." He moved to the window, looking out toward the empty corrals. "I've been thinking we should bring some of the cattle back. Not all 60 head, that would be too much for you to oversee, but perhaps 20. Enough to maintain the grazing patterns and keep the operation viable." "Would that require additional hands?" Lily asked. "For the move, yes. After that, I could check on them during my visits. And there's Miguel, who helps at both properties. He's trustworthy and knows the land well." Franklin turned back to her. "Are you comfortable with that arrangement?" Lily nodded. "It seems sensible, and I would prefer to see the ranch functioning as it was intended rather than sitting empty." Over the next week, a routine began to establish itself. Franklin would arrive in the morning, discuss ranch business with Lily, work on repairs around the property, and leave before dusk. Lily kept the house, organized the accounts using a new system she had devised, and gradually learned more about cattle ranching from books in Fletcher's collection and careful questions to Franklin. Miguel, the helper Franklin had mentioned, proved to be a quiet, efficient man in his 40s who treated Lily with polite respect. With his assistance, and several other hands borrowed from Franklin's ranch, they moved 20 head of cattle back to Fletcher's property. Watching the animals return to the pastures gave Lily an unexpected sense of satisfaction. As September gave way to October, the days grew shorter and the nights cooler. Lily found herself looking forward to Franklin's visits, not just for the company, but because she genuinely enjoyed their conversations. He was knowledgeable about ranching, thoughtful in his explanations, and increasingly willing to consider her suggestions about managing the property. One crisp morning, as they sat at the kitchen table reviewing the latest cattle prices from a newspaper Franklin had brought from town, Lily gathered her courage to ask something that had been on her mind. "Franklin, may I ask you a personal question?" He looked up, surprised. "Of course." "Why have you never married? You seem well established with your own successful ranch." Franklin's expression grew guarded. "The right opportunity never presented itself, I suppose." He turned his attention back to the newspaper, clearly uncomfortable. Lily sensed there was more to the story but didn't press. I'm sorry if I overstepped, Franklin sighed, setting the paper down. No, it's a fair question. The truth is, I was engaged once, about 5 years ago. Caroline was her name. She was the daughter of a rancher from the next county. His eyes took on a distant look. There was a dispute over water rights. Her father and I ended up on opposite sides. Things became heated. She chose her family's position, as was right. We parted ways. I'm sorry, Lily said softly. It was for the best, Franklin replied, though his tone suggested he wasn't entirely convinced. Ranching is a difficult life for a woman. Caroline was born to it, and even she had doubts. He looked at Lily directly. It's why I admired my brother's courage in seeking a bride from the East. And yours in accepting. The conversation moved on to other topics, but Lily found herself thinking about it later. Franklin Jameson was more complex than she had initially realized. Behind his reserved exterior lay a man who had experienced his own disappointments and losses. As October progressed, the work on the ranch continued. Franklin repaired the corral fencing and a leaking section of the roof. Lily maintained the house and the books, and even began learning to ride the gentle mare Franklin had brought over from his property, explaining that transportation was essential for anyone living on a ranch. The arrangement was working well, yet Lily couldn't ignore the fact that it was temporary. Eventually, Franklin would need to make a decision about the ranch's future, and she would need to determine her next steps. The thought created an increasing unease that she tried to push aside. One evening, as Lily sat by the fire mending a tear in one of the curtains, a powerful storm blew in from the west. The wind howled around the eaves, rain lashed against the windows, and lightning illuminated the sky in brilliant flashes. Lily added more wood to the fire, grateful for the solid walls protecting her from the elements. A sudden pounding at the door startled her. She approached cautiously, rifle in hand, as Franklin had instructed during bad weather when trouble sometimes sought shelter. "Who's there?" she called. "It's Franklin. Sorry to disturb you, but my horse went lame 2 miles back. I got caught in the storm returning from town." Lily quickly unbolted the door. Franklin stumbled in, dripping wet, his hat doing little to protect him from the deluge. "I'm sorry to intrude," he said, removing his sodden coat. "I wouldn't have come if there was any alternative." "Don't apologize," Lily replied, taking his coat and hanging it near the fire. "You're half frozen. Come warm yourself while I make coffee." Franklin moved gratefully to the hearth, extending his hands toward the flames. His shirt was damp as well, clinging to broad shoulders that Lily found herself noticing more than was entirely proper. "The storm came up so suddenly," he explained. "I was on my way back from meeting with a cattle buyer in town when Thunder, my horse, stepped in a hole. He's not badly hurt, but I couldn't ride him. Had to lead him to the nearest shelter, which was here." Lily brought him coffee, which he accepted with thanks. "Where's your horse now?" "In the barn. I made sure he was settled before coming to the house." Franklin took a sip of the hot liquid, color returning to his face. "This storm looks to be settling in for the night. I can sleep in the barn if that would be more appropriate." "Nonsense," Lily said firmly. "It's freezing out there. Fletcher's room has been cleaned and aired. You can stay there tonight." Franklin looked hesitant. "People might talk if they knew I spent the night here." "Let them talk," Lily replied with more boldness than she felt. "We've done nothing improper, and I won't have you risking illness for the sake of appearances. Besides, who would know out here?" Franklin smiled slightly. "You make a practical point." He finished his coffee. "Thank you, Lily." It was the first time he had used her given name without the formal Miss Harper preceding it. The change felt significant, though Lily tried not to read too much into it. She prepared a simple meal from their supplies: beans, salt pork, and the last of the bread Franklin had brought earlier in the week. They ate by firelight, the storm continuing to rage outside, creating a strange intimacy in the small house. "I received a letter from a Mr. Hardwick today," Franklin mentioned as they ate. "He's interested in possibly buying this property in the spring." Lily felt her stomach tighten. "I see. Is his offer favorable, reasonable, though not generous?" Franklin studied his plate. "He has adjoining land to the east and wants to expand." "And have you decided to sell?" Lily kept her voice neutral, though the prospect filled her with unexpected sadness. Franklin sighed. "It would be the sensible choice." Running two properties is proving challenging, even with your capable assistance. He looked up, meeting her eyes. But I find myself reluctant. Fletcher built this place from nothing. It seems wrong to let it pass out of the family. What's the alternative? Keep both ranches, find a permanent manager for this one. Or, he trailed off, then shook his head. In any case, nothing needs to be decided immediately. After dinner, Lily showed Franklin to Fletcher's room, providing him with a clean towel and some of Fletcher's clothes that might serve as night attire. "I'll see you in the morning," she said, suddenly awkward in the narrow hallway outside the bedroom. "Lily," Franklin said as she turned to go. "Thank you, not just for tonight, but for everything you've done here." Fletcher would be pleased to see his home so well cared for. The simple sincerity in his voice warmed her. "Good night, Franklin." In her own room, listening to the storm and the occasional creak of floorboards as Franklin moved about in the next room, Lily found herself confronting feelings she had been trying to ignore. Over the past weeks, her regard for Franklin Jameson had grown beyond respect for an employer. His quiet strength, his integrity, his occasional flashes of humor all had combined to create an attraction she hadn't anticipated. But what future could there be in such feelings? Franklin had hired her out of a sense of obligation to his brother's memory and practical need for assistance. Once the ranch was sold or otherwise settled, their arrangement would end. She would need to move on, perhaps to one of the larger towns where employment opportunities were greater. The thought brought an ache to her chest that surprised her with its intensity. Morning arrived with clearing skies and a brilliant sunrise. Lily rose early, dressed carefully, and began preparing breakfast. Franklin emerged from Fletcher's room looking refreshed, his hair damp from washing. "Thunder seems better this morning," he reported. "I checked on him at first light. With rest, he should be fine to ride by tomorrow." "That's good news," Lily replied, setting plates on the table, "though there's no rush for you to leave if he needs more time." They ate breakfast together, discussing ranch matters as usual, yet Lily sensed a subtle change in the atmosphere between them. The shared evening, the simple domesticity of their meal, it created an intimacy that hadn't existed before. After breakfast, Franklin insisted on helping with the dishes, a task he normally left to Lily. Standing beside him at the wash basin, their hands occasionally brushing as they worked, Lily felt a flutter in her stomach that had nothing to do with hunger. "I've been thinking," Franklin said as he dried a plate, "about the ranch, about what Fletcher would have wanted." Lily waited, sensing the importance of his words. "He built this place with a family in mind, that's why he sent for you." Franklin set the plate down carefully. "Selling it to Hardwick, who only wants to expand his holdings, feels wrong somehow, but I can't properly run two ranches alone." "What are you considering?" Lily asked, her pulse quickening. Franklin turned to face her, his expression serious. "I'm considering a partnership. A marriage of convenience, you might say, though I hope it could become more in time." Lily stared at him, not certain she understood. "A partnership with whom?" "With you, Lily." Franklin's voice was steady, though she noticed his hands tighten on the dish towel he held. "You came west to be a rancher's wife. Circumstances have changed, but that possibility remains. You've proven yourself capable and dedicated. The ranch thrives under your care." "You're proposing marriage," Lily clarified, her mind racing. "I am." Franklin met her gaze directly. "It would solve several problems at once. The ranch would remain in the family, you would have security and a permanent home, and he hesitated. "I would have a partner I've come to admire greatly." Lily set down the cup she was washing, needing a moment to collect her thoughts. The proposal was unexpected, yet not entirely surprising given their situation. But was it enough? A marriage based on practical considerations rather than deeper feelings. "Franklin," she began carefully, "I'm honored by your proposal, truly, but marriage is a lifetime commitment. It should be based on more than convenience or practical arrangements." "You're right," he acknowledged, "and I wouldn't suggest it if I didn't believe more could grow between us. In fact," he set the towel down, taking a step closer to her, "I believe it already has, at least on my part." Lily's breath caught at the intensity in his eyes. "I didn't expect this," Franklin continued. "After Caroline, I thought that part of my life was finished. Then you arrived, and gradually, day by day, something changed." He took her hand gently. "I find myself thinking of you when we're apart. Wondering what you'll say about a particular problem. Admiring your courage and determination. He smiled slightly. Even arguing with you about cattle prices has become a pleasure I look forward to. Despite herself, Lily smiled at that. Their debates about the markets had become something of a regular occurrence. I don't expect an immediate answer, Franklin said, releasing her hand. Take time to consider, it's a significant decision. Yes, Lily agreed, her mind whirling with possibilities. I should think carefully. Franklin nodded, respecting her caution. I'll check on Thunder again, then see to some repairs on the barn roof while the weather holds. After he left, Lily sat at the kitchen table, her household tasks momentarily forgotten. Franklin's proposal offered security, a home, and a role she had come to enjoy. But was it enough? Her heart had once yearned for love, for the connection she had begun to imagine with Fletcher through his letters. Yet in the weeks she had known Franklin, something had undeniably grown between them. Not the romantic whirlwind she had once dreamed of, perhaps, but something equally powerful, a deep respect, a comfortable companionship that occasionally sparked with something more when their eyes met or their hands touched. Could that be enough to build a life on? Could those embers grow into a flame with time and care? Lily rose and moved to the window, watching Franklin work on the barn roof. His movements were sure and efficient, his strength evident even from a distance. She thought of their conversations, his patience in explaining ranch operations, his respect for her opinions. She thought of the previous evening, the quiet comfort of sharing a meal during the storm. By midday, Lily had reached a decision. She prepared a simple lunch and brought it out to the barn where Franklin was working. He climbed down from the roof at her approach, wiping his hands on a cloth. I thought you might be hungry, Lily said, offering the plate. Thank you. Franklin took it gratefully. The repairs are coming along well. Another hour should finish it. Lily nodded, gathering her courage. I've been thinking about your proposal. Franklin set the plate aside, giving her his full attention. Before I give my answer, I need to ask something, Lily said. When you look at me, do you see your brother's intended bride? Is your offer born of obligation to his memory? No, Franklin replied without hesitation. When I first met you, perhaps there was an element of that, but not anymore. He stepped closer. When I look at you now, I see Lily Harper, intelligent, determined, stronger than she knows. The woman who brought life back to a neglected ranch, the woman I want to build a future with. His sincerity was unmistakable, warming Lily from within. Then my answer is yes, she said softly. I accept your proposal. The smile that transformed Franklin's face made Lily's heart skip. He took her hands in his touch gentle despite the calluses from years of ranch work. You've made me very happy, he said simply. There should be conditions, Lily added, practical despite the emotion of the moment. A true partnership. I want to continue managing the books, having a voice in ranch decisions. I would expect nothing less, Franklin agreed. Your insights have already improved operations considerably. And we should have time to know each other better before the wedding, Lily continued. Perhaps until Christmas, a reasonable courtship period, Franklin nodded. Though I suggest you move to town during that time for propriety's sake. You could stay with Mrs. Porter while we court properly. The prospect of leaving the ranch, even temporarily, gave Lily pause, but she recognized the wisdom in maintaining appearances. Agreed, though I'll still ride out to work on the accounts several times a week. Of course. Franklin's eyes held hers, his expression growing serious. Lily, I want you to know I don't enter this lightly. I believe we can build something good together, something lasting. I believe that too, she replied softly. The moment called for something more, they both felt it. Slowly, giving her every opportunity to step away, Franklin leaned forward. Their first kiss was gentle, questioning, a promise of deeper feelings that might grow with time. When they parted, Lily felt a certainty settle over her. This wasn't the future she had imagined when she boarded the stagecoach in Boston, but perhaps it was the future she was meant to find. The following weeks brought significant changes. Lily moved to Mrs. Porter's boarding house in town, where the announcement of her engagement to Fletcher Jameson caused a minor sensation. Mrs. Porter, after initial skepticism, became supportive, offering advice about Western life and marriage that ranged from practical to embarrassingly specific. Franklin courted Lily properly, taking her to Sunday services at the small church in Cottonwood Creek, escorting her to the harvest social, and dining with her at the town's only restaurant. They also spent many hours at the ranch, where Lily continued to oversee the accounts and Franklin worked on improvements to the property. As they spent more time together, their initial respect and attraction deepened. Lily discovered Franklin's dry humor, his extensive knowledge of the natural world, and his thoughtfulness toward others that manifested in quiet ways. Franklin came to admire Lily's quick mind, her adaptability, and her growing confidence in her role at the ranch. By early December, with their Christmas wedding approaching, the practical arrangement they had begun with had transformed into genuine love. Neither could pinpoint exactly when the change had occurred. It had been gradual, built day by day through shared work, conversations, and growing understanding. 2 weeks before the wedding, Franklin brought Lily to the ranch after Sunday services. As they approached the property, Lily noticed something unusual: smoke rising from the chimney, though no one should have been there. "Franklin?" she questioned, gesturing toward the house. He smiled mysteriously. "I may have arranged a surprise." When they entered the house, Lily gasped. The main room had been transformed. Evergreen boughs decorated the mantel, a small pine tree stood in the corner, and candles were lit throughout the space, bathing everything in a warm glow. The table was set for a meal, with Franklin's best dishes and a small bouquet of winter berries as a centerpiece. "How did you manage this?" Lily asked, amazed at the transformation. "Miguel helped," Franklin admitted, "and Mrs. Porter provided some of the decorations. I wanted to give you something special, a proper welcome to what will soon be our home." Lily turned slowly, taking in the care that had gone into each detail. "It's beautiful." Her eyes fell on something new in the corner, a rocking chair similar to Fletcher's but clearly recently made, with delicate carvings along the arms. "I made that for you," Franklin said, following her gaze, "for winter evenings by the fire and perhaps someday—" He hesitated. "For a mother with a child." Tears pricked Lily's eyes at the thought, a family of their own in this house built with such care and hope. She crossed to Franklin, reaching for his hands. "It's perfect, all of it." Franklin drew her closer. "I know our beginning was unusual. You came for Fletcher, not for me, but I've come to believe that some things, even difficult ones, happen for a purpose." His voice grew husky. "I thank God every day that Stagecoach brought you here, even if the circumstances were not what either of us expected." "As do I," Lily whispered, her heart full. This man, thoughtful, honorable, increasingly dear to her, had become the center of her world in ways she could never have anticipated when she left Boston. Franklin reached into his pocket, withdrawing a small box. "This was my mother's," he said, opening it to reveal a simple gold band set with a small pearl. "I'd be honored if you would wear it." Lily extended her hand, allowing Franklin to slip the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, as though always meant to be there. "It's beautiful," she said softly. "There's one more thing," Franklin said, reaching into his coat. He withdrew a folded paper. "I found this among Fletcher's things recently. I believe you should have it." Lily opened the paper with trembling fingers. It was the last letter Fletcher had been writing to her, now completed. "My dear Miss Harper, I find myself counting the days until your arrival. The house stands ready for your presence, though I fear it is humble compared to what you may be accustomed to in Boston. Still, there is good land here and opportunity for us to build something meaningful together. My brother Franklin speaks of retiring from ranching, but I know the land is in his blood as it is in mine. Perhaps someday he will find the right partner to share his life and work. I hope for his happiness as I anticipate my own with you. I must close now as the fever makes writing difficult. Know that I await your arrival with hope and faith that our future holds many blessings. Yours sincerely, Fletcher Jameson." Tears flowed freely down Lily's cheeks as she finished reading. "He knew he was dying when he wrote this," she whispered. Franklin nodded, his own eyes suspiciously bright. "I believe he did, yet he still wrote of hope and the future." He took the letter gently from her hands. "And in a way, he was right. You did bring hope and a future to this ranch, just not in the way any of us could have foreseen." Lily leaned into Franklin's embrace, finding comfort in his strength. "It feels as though he somehow blessed this," she said softly. "Us." "I believe he would have," Franklin replied. "Fletcher always wanted family and happiness for this place. Now it will have both." As they stood together in the candlelit room, Lily felt a sense of rightness settle over her. She had traveled west seeking a new beginning, a home, a family. Through unexpected tragedy and twist of fate, she had found all three not as she had imagined, but perhaps exactly as she needed. 2 weeks later, on a clear, cold December morning, Lily Harper and Franklin Jameson were married in the small church in Cottonwood Creek. The entire town turned out for the ceremony, curious about the Eastern bride who had arrived for one brother only to marry another. But as Lily walked down the aisle toward Franklin, her heart full of love for the man awaiting her, the unusual circumstances of their meeting seemed like nothing more than the necessary path that had brought them to this moment. After the ceremony, they returned to their ranch now, where Franklin carried Lily across the threshold in the traditional manner. Inside, candles glowed warmly, illuminating the home they would share. "Welcome home, Mrs. Jameson," Franklin said softly, setting her gently on her feet. Lily looked up at her husband, at the love shining in his eyes, and knew with absolute certainty that she had found where she belonged. Not in the way she had expected, but in the way that was meant to be. "I am home," she replied, standing on tiptoe to kiss him. "Exactly where I'm supposed to be." Outside, snow began to fall, blanketing the ranch in pristine white, a clean slate for their new beginning. Inside, wrapped in each other's arms, Lily and Franklin Jameson looked toward their future, a future built on unexpected circumstances, careful understanding, and a love that had grown slowly but surely, like the strongest plants on the prairie, with deep roots to withstand any storm. As years passed, the Jameson Ranch prospered under their joint care. Franklin's strength and knowledge of the land, combined with Lily's sharp mind for business, created an operation that grew steadily more successful. Their family expanded first with twins, a boy and girl named after Franklin's parents, then 2 years later with another son. On quiet evenings, with children asleep and the day's work complete, Lily often sat in her rocking chair by the fire, Franklin beside her, and marveled at the twists of fate that had brought her to this life. She had arrived at an empty ranch expecting one future, and found another one filled with greater joy and deeper love than she could have imagined. And sometimes, when the house was still and moonlight streamed through the windows, Lily whispered a quiet thank you to Fletcher, whose letters had brought her west and whose legacy had given her the greatest gift of all, a home where love and faith illuminated every corner, bright as candles in the darkness, guiding her way home.